All right. Are you ready? Okay. So I originally came up with this idea to have this Menoparty focus on grief. A few months ago, I was doing my menopause certification and I came across this. I'm going to read this to you. And it says, it's talking about supporting your clients in their existential health. And it says, grief and loss are always with us at midlife in some form or another. You may grieve the loss of people as well as a pet, a job, a sense of stability, a dearly held belief, the way your body worked when you were 19, or nearly anything else. Through it all, you might ask questions like, who am I now? What does this all mean? Am I going to be okay? And who is driving this bus anyway? It doesn't mean midlife is inevitably a time of despair, depression, or disillusionment. Rather than cracking up, we have the chance to crack open, questioning what matters to us now and what we might like to take with us for the next steps on the journey of life. And when I read the sentence about cracking open, I immediately thought of you because you have such a beautiful gift of being able to so seamlessly and without threat in any way, just allowing your clients and your friends to crack open and holding such a beautiful space. So everyone, this is Hildie. Hildie is a dear friend of mine, and we have known each other for 17 years, maybe a long time.
Yeah,
And then when we bought our house, we happily realized, oh, what was that?
my glass.
Oh, your glasses. When we bought our house, we happily realized that we were neighbors. We had no idea. So that was really fun. And so now we like take walks and stuff, and it's really fun. But Hildy is just completing her certification as an end-of-life doula and a grief counselor from the University of Vermont. And Hildy and I have been in grief together for a few years because our dear friend and mentor Patricia Moreno passed away. And we both flew out to LA. We both were there for the whole thing, and we still grapple with it every single day. And when I read that passage in my menopause book, I was like, I really think that I would love to have you come and just open the floor and talk about what grief is in midlife and what it might present as, and who and how to handle it, and how to ask for help, and when to know when it's okay to say I'm not ready yet, and all the questions. And I'll just let you take it away for a little while.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, interestingly enough, what is grief? And for me, understanding that grief is natural and actually healthy, where initially I viewed grief as like something that you're like, in the middle of, and then it kind of goes away, and then you're okay. But the truth is, as you start to lose people and you start to experience grief, you understand, one, it's natural. And so, and two, I love the definition of grief as it's unexpressed love.
Mm.
So when you think of it like unexpressed love, it really brings you back to the heart of the matter, where grief is all about your heart. And grief comes and goes in waves. And, when I first heard about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and her whole stages of grief, if you know anything about that, she talks about denial and anger and bargaining and depression and then acceptance. So she talks about these 5 phases of grief. So, you hear about that when you're in graduate school and you're learning about, psychology things. And all of a sudden now I'm like, it's actually not stages that you go through. It's stages that you go back and forth and in and out of, right? So understanding that, and then beginning to catch yourself in those stages doesn't mean you're defining yourself, but it helps you understand yourself in a different way, or it allows you to give yourself grace in different ways. So, I start thinking about that, like denial, totally get that. Bargaining, how am I bargaining about whatever's going on, whether it be my own life or the loss of somebody? And then as I did more of this work, I'm just going to briefly bring this up and then we can open the floor. there's two other stages of grief that I've learned about. One, Claire Bedwell Smith wrote a book called Anxiety, the Missing Stage of Grief. And she really talks about how anxiety in a way is its own stage that you go in and out of it, in and out of it, in and out of, and there is actually nothing wrong with it. And when you understand it, you can name it better so that then you can actually set yourself up to deal with it. So that was one other stage of grief. And then the other one is David Kessler, who actually did a lot of work with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, talks about another stage after acceptance, which is called making meaning of it, which I really like, because then it allows you to stop and get back in your heart and go, okay, what do I do with this? It's not just accepting this stage of grief, but then what? How do I now use it for some value that I could either bring to my life or somebody else's life? Or how can I see the world differently now that I've gone through this experience? So when I think about grief and I think about all the stages, I really do like to make sure I honor my anxiety around whatever's going on. And then begin to think about, what does making meaning look like? For my mom, after she passed away, like, I just bring her plate out for, like, I use one of her serving platters. And, there's things that I do to honor different people in different ways. And it doesn't have to be anything out loud, right? I could if I want to, but I'm fairly private. And I don't post a lot about things that I just am fairly private, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how I grieve. So understanding what makes you feel good or what can bring meaning to you allows you to process and feel back to whole, or back to, it's not whole, but it's really just living your life with this grief along with you, rather than thinking grief goes somewhere and you leave it. Like, grief is always in my pockets. Grief always shows up, and it's actually a little wink. Like, I'm like, okay, hi, hi to the past me that actually served to get me to where I am now. Hi to my parents who aren't here that, gave me a lot of things. Hi to Patricia that taught us so many things. Hi to even pets that taught me how to love other pets. So, like, it can be a little wink that stays with me.
Do you find that sometimes, knowing that the stages, I was just thinking about, like, how the stages, you said, I actually did my high school research paper on the stages of grief. Yeah. And I remember thinking, oh, well, once you get to acceptance, then it's over.
Right.
Like, I feel like it's frustrating. Like, because I'm such a person who checks boxes, right? And I'm like, okay, well, I've gone through all these stages. So, like, why am I not done?
Exactly.
Like, why does this still bother me? Why do I still feel so sad? Why do I still feel like I failed? Why do I still feel these negative or sad ways?
And that's why I like the description of unexpressed love, because you never actually want love to go away. And you always are going to have it in your pocket, and it's always going to wink at you from different corners. And when you see that, it shifts it. I'm a box checker too, and I was like, what the hell? You're not through. Well, we're going back again and again and again.
Yeah.
But actually, each time you go through the stage and you can call it what it is, I like to say, if you name it, you can tame it. If you know what it is, it just gives you the opportunity to go, oh, hello, anger. It's okay that you're here. And I understand it. Like, it allows me to recognize it for who it is with me and what it brings to me today, and then be able to move through it. Right? We have to be able to keep moving through these stages, which is why they keep showing up.
And I think also in this phase of life, like, the grief starts to compound because we have more to grieve as we get older. Just by virtue of being here longer, we have more meaningful relationships. We have more meaningful experiences the older we get. And so we can't carry them with us all the time. Grieving old friends that you might have fallen out with or fallen apart from, or grieving a job that you really loved, or, there's just so much to grieve.
So much to grieve, so much to have loved, and
Mhm.
then so much.
See how she keeps reframing me? I mean, damn.
Well, I mean, I have to reframe myself all the time and
Yeah.
go like, oh, that's a wink. Oh, that's like
Oh,
a
yeah.
moment. Oh, that's like,
You're so good at that.
but you could be good at it and then you lose it. And then you get just like the stages of grief, like like if you know what if you spend time at the ocean, like there could be a little wave, a little wave, a little wave. And then if you're not looking, the big wave comes, takes you out. Like that's what grief is like. It's little waves, and then a big wave. And the big wave, you have to just be able to go, oh, that's what that was. Brush
Yeah.
the sand out of your hair and get back up again.
I also imagine that practicing this all the time and acknowledging that we are all in grief. Like, so we see it, people at the grocery store, everybody's grieving. I just listened to a podcast, We Can Do Hard Things podcast with Glennon
Oh, yeah.
Doyle, and they had Dan Levy on, and Dan Levy has that movie out on Netflix now called Good Grief. And which I haven't seen yet, which I really want to see. Maybe we can have a date and watch it together. But it's about friends. It's about a group of friends and they're grieving different things. And he says that one of the things that he wanted to show in the movie is that everybody's grieving. Everyone in the grocery store that you see, it feels so isolating when you're grieving because you feel like you're the only one, because you walk into the grocery store and everybody's living their lives and laughing and dancing to the music in the grocery store and just buying their beans and rice, whatever else they're buying, but you are living in this like grief spiral. But I imagine doing this work reminds you that if everybody is grieving, if somebody's being someday, maybe that's why. And I imagine it can be a way for us to have a lot more empathy toward people in this stage.
Yeah, a lot more empathy and a lot more connection, right?
Mm.
Because one way to deal with grief is by having it witnessed, like speaking about it. Like that's why this group is so powerful, because people are witnessing what you're talking about or witnessing your grief or being with you with it. And that's a extremely important part of healing.
Mm.
Speaking about something is extremely powerful in the healing process.
Mm.
And in this whole end of life death doula training that I'm doing, we spend a lot of time talking about how important it is to let the person who is dying speak. And you can't be afraid of feelings around it, right? Or you can't want to fix it or save them, but just let them speak, because there's healing power in speaking.
That seems like a really good time to pause and see if anybody has anything that they want to ask or say at this point.
Living it is a whole different experience. It literally is your heart cracking wide, unexpressed love times a trillion. And there's nothing that can train us for that. Nothing that could train you for any piece of it. And then on top of it, the shock of it happening so quickly, you had little time to mentally, like, anticipatory grief is rough, but the upside of anticipatory grief is you actually keep playing it out in your head, which kind of gives you a little bit of preparation. But when you don't have that, it's like that big wave that literally knocks you over. Having people that you could talk to is really helpful. And I also think taking quiet time. And sometimes I just go and I write a letter to somebody, and then I go burn it I don't need, for me, the ocean is a very profound place of talking to God, so sometimes I just go to the ocean and read it and then get rid of it. But it's a way of just giving yourself whatever time you need. Because you're right. What happens if you don't grieve it personally? It comes out every other way, sideways. Right. And so the closer that people are to us, I think the bigger the waves that come.
It makes me think about, so often I talk to friends about like, what's worse? Would it be worse to die suddenly and quickly and not have the closure? Or would it be worse to know you're dying, years or months ahead of time and have that opportunity? And it's like there are such hard things about either way for the one who's departing or the one who's staying. And there is no easy, it's a wave no matter what.
It's a wave, it's unexpressed love, no matter how you do it. And the more you love, the more you feel. And the more you feel, this is part of feeling, but for me, it was like the ups, like part of me was like, it's never going away. And then the part of me was like, it's never going away. I'm never going to have to lose them. Like before my dad passed away, I remember I had made a promise that I was going to have all these conversations with him. And, first I was like, I'm not going to talk to him because I'm going to make him feel bad. But the truth was, I didn't want to talk to him because I didn't want to deal with it, But when I did, I said, I'm scared I'm going to forget the sound of your voice. Like, I'm not going to have that. My dad, and the story, my dad said, when you were a little girl, what did I tell you when we saw a penny? And I would say, oh, the angels are talking to us. My dad started the whole idea of like, oh, when you see a penny, I'm going to be talking to you. So that's my little like wink. That's like has me go, oh, when I see a penny, like it's a reminder that he's always with me. My mom was like, what do you want to be? My mom's very practical. She wanted to be a paperclip. All right. I'm deep in trying to figure out what I'm going to be,
A paperclip.
I can't even tell you,
Oh my God.
But, I find paper clips at the oddest times and I'm like, oh, there's a wink. Like there's that love, like figuring out ways to make meaning and figure out about ways how to like look for your winks or your signs. Laura Lynn Jackson wrote this book, The Light Between Us, and which is really starts about signs and looking for signs, and people that are gone will leave you signs or winks. And it's it was a great affirming moment for me from something I already dealt with my dad. But I just think in a lot of ways, the bigger your heart is, the more you're going to feel this. And I think that's a gift. And I think everybody's going through grief, has gone through grief, or if not, needs to begin to practice.
Yeah, reckon with the fact that it's coming. Yeah. Carol, you have your hand up. Aging. I mean, just in the last 2 days, I've had 3 doctor's appointments. And it's like, what is happening? Like our bodies are aging. Our minds don't feel like they are, unless, we have our brain fog moments or whatever. But like we are aging every day. And when society is telling us that we need to supplement with all the creams and the Botox and the fillers and the plastic surgeries and working out to a ridiculous amount to keep these bodies that we have when we were 20, like it makes us grieve our youth.
And it makes us miss living the moment.
Yes, exactly.
For God's sakes. Like if grief is like death sitting on your shoulder, it's reminding you how to live. Like it could be reminding you how to live and how to make every day matter and how to enjoy whatever you're experiencing.
Yes.
You are like smack dab in the middle of it. Like you're in the middle of the roller coaster ride or Chutes and Ladders or whatever. Like it's when you're actually in the middle of it, it comes faster and rapid fire, and it's harder to like name it and be gentle with yourself. But it really does take practice of just, okay, my love, this is all right. Like every stage is a valuable stage to eventually begin to give it new meaning. But when you're smack dab in the middle of it, it's like it's way harder. Anticipatory grief, or like worrying about what's going to come, is extremely stressful. And not only that, but we make up the whole story in our head, and then this is going to, and that's going to happen, and this is how it's going to go, and we can spin it in so many ways.
Yeah.
But I think it's so beautiful that you called your mom back and was like, I'm sorry, I'm worried, like I'm gonna miss you. Like that moment of really loving her is very powerful. And I am sure it's going to be some of those moments that you're not going to forget, or the moments that you're going to, feel good about for a long time, because it's a way to love somebody and do it in not only fix whatever mistake you thought you made, or like correct it, but do it in a way that lets that person know how much you care and how much you love them.
And I also think that like you got to let yourself off the hook a little bit too, because you're a human being, you're not a robot, and you really care. And the fear and the sadness and the anticipation of losing something you love so much is real.
It's real. And acknowledging that your mom wants her independence is also very powerful, because now she gets that you understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, that's the one thing we really, as humans, our independence matters to us.
I think about that with my mother-in-law a lot, because my mother-in-law has dementia, and this past year we moved her from Iowa, where she lived alone, to an assisted living place about 20 minutes away from us. And we had to sell her car. Her doctor said we have to retire her from driving. It's no longer safe for her to drive. When I tell you that every single time we see her, she wants her car.
Mm.
And instead, and now we have to redirect her, and we have to say like, oh, well, if you had your car, where would we go? Like, let's just talk about where we would go. And the answer is always everywhere. I'd go everywhere. And then in the next sentence, she's like, where are we? You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, put her on the Garden State Parkway and see how that goes. But it is that there is a grief in losing your independence. And that happens too as we get older, and as we see our parents get older. And how do we handle, like, because we know, like, and when we have to make decisions for our parents for their safety and greater good, but when they're not ready to yet, that, I think that's really hard. I have a very good friend whose dad is dying, and he refuses to go into hospice because he's decided that she is his hospice care person. And he will not accept hospice because she's going to come over every single day and do it. And she's in a really tricky situation because she's trying to get help, but he will not allow it. He will not let hospice come in. And it's just, you have to at some point be like, you need this. I will be here for you. I can't be the only one here for you. Or I know you miss your car. I would love to drive somewhere with you. Where could we go? And just like role play for a little while and hope she forgets about, it's painful.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're in the middle of your own, whatever's going on in your life, and you have your own grief, and you're in the sandwich generation, and you have kids, and you're taking care of your mom, and you're worrying about your own body, and you're going to your own doctors, right? And then you got this on top of it. Just the self-care and that self-compassion or self-love is critical. It's really critical. And even if it's not in big ways, even little ways, like what could you do that's little, that's taking care of yourself? Because, little is sometimes very powerful. Sometimes little is more powerful.
So let's talk about that, because we're getting ready to wrap up, and this is a great segue. So what are the little things that we can do to care for ourselves while we are moving through grief?
Okay, I have a couple ideas.
Okay.
So one is to name it. The more, and that's simple, right? In the moment, go, wow, I'm feeling angry. Okay, me, you're angry, and that's a fair emotion to have. Like, just being able to name it is the quickest way to not go down the slippery slope with it.
Okay. Name
Right.
it. Mhm.
Two, talk about it. Find somebody to talk to, whether it's a therapist, whether it's your pastor, whether it's a friend, whether somebody, because being able to be witnessed through it, or being able to share and talk about it, and not expect somebody to fix it. Right? Like I have to set the context sometimes, especially with my husband, love him dearly, but he's like the fixer. And I have to go, I'm just telling you, but I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to hear it. Right? And so giving somebody permission to not have to fix it is great, but being able to talk about it is powerful. So those are two things. The third thing is, can you start to make meaning in other ways? Like, can you find ways to make meaning of whatever's going on? Okay. So can you offer a neighbor who doesn't have, when my dad watched his car be taken away, like, it was one of those moments, but being able to now, like, offer my neighbor across the street a ride to the store, or if it's raining, like, offer to take, like, making meaning in other ways. And I don't tell anybody, like, I'll go to the store. My dad would love coffee, so I'll go in Dunkin' Donuts and I'll find somebody to be like, let me just buy, I have extra, can I just buy you a coffee? And I don't even tell them that it's like, my dad loved coffee and I would bring him coffee, and it was like one thing that we had together, but I just offer, buy somebody coffee, and don't even have to say why, but it's like my little
It's like
wink.
a little wink. Yeah. I love that idea. I love that idea.
And then little things of self-care, like, can you take a bath? Can you spend what is it? Is it tapping that makes you quiet? Is it just 5 breaths? Is it looking at the sky? Is it petting your puppy? Is it like, what can you do that you purposely call it, like, you put a pin in, like, here's my self-care. And it doesn't matter what it is, but when you acknowledge yourself for doing something with self-care, it gives it a different meaning, or it gives it a different value to yourself.
I love that. And same goes for any kind of grieving your old self.
Grieving your old self, grieving a job that you don't have anymore, grieving a relationship that's you don't have anymore,
or
friendship,
grieving your child growing up.
Oh yeah, or your child having a child, right? Like,
grieving the end of your fertility. This is where we're at.
Yeah.
No more babies for us.
Yeah, grieving that feeling invisible, like, as you get older and
that's a big one. Oh, we need more time.
So, but just acknowledging and then calling it what it is, and then doing some little things that you can start to put a pin in, because we're not going to make the grief go away. And truthfully, we don't really want the grief to totally go away, because it's expressions of love. But we do want to be able to put it in a container that we can handle it. Or if it's a huge emotion, find some way to get support through it.
So get support, name it, find a way to make meaning of it, talk. And if you don't have anybody to talk to, write a letter. Write a letter to yourself, write a letter to whoever, write just the feelings down, and what you're upset about, because the minute you write it down, it comes out of you. It
it's expressed differently.
Yeah.
And then you can see it separate from yourself. It allows you to separate yourself from the feelings, which at times is a relief.
Yeah. It's a double whammy, I think, because we're somebody something because people know us through the context of our parents or our children. And also we're disappearing because we're no longer like reproductively viable. We're just the mom or the neighbor or the woman at the grocery store, and it's not as exciting as it used to be, and it's not as sexy as it used to be or as enticing as it used to be.
Right. And the upside of that is it forces you to stand in what you think matters, you know what I mean, versus what the world thinks matters. But I have to keep reminding of myself of that period, like all the time of like, wait, I matter. The impact that I leave in the world matters, right? But it's a change from being seen as, you know, it's a shift in identity, and that is hard, really.
Grief is a part of life, struggle is a part of life, aging is a part of life. And yes, it is hard, but with the right tools and with the right community and with realizing and remembering that we are not alone, we can overcome and we can enter into the last phase of our life in a very beautiful, very authentic, and very powerful way. So I want to thank Hildie so much for coming and running over to my house and spending this hour plus with us. And if you want to keep in touch with Hildie, I'm going to put her email address in the follow-up email, which very apropos of this conversation, I call the postmortem. So I'm going to put her information in there. She's an incredible life coach. She's been a life coach for so many years, and she's coached me and so many of my friends. And I just love you so much, and I honor everything that you are, and you are just incredible, and I aspire to be like you always. So thank you. And thank you all.
Deeply care about this topic, and anybody that needs anything, like the sisterhood.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's a
sisterhood. Yes. So I really, really, really look forward to the next one. We'll do it in a couple weeks. I'll put out an email, and please invite your friends. The Menoparties are always free and always available to anyone who needs to participate. This is my service to you. I am so passionate about helping us all get through this phase with any knowledge that I have to share and any knowledgeable friends that I have to pull into my basement on a Tuesday night. So thank you all so much. I hope you have a beautiful evening. Go turn off all of your bright lights and put on your blue light glasses and ease into the night, maybe a little shower, a little bath, a little self-care, and love you so much. And we will see you very soon.